Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm going to see how long this is going to take me. See if I can get it done in a reasonable time. But there are differences between the traditional view that I and others of my generation understood the second coming to be versus the current undercurrent of Mormons who believe that the second coming is going to happen, because it is different. And then there's Nelson, what he's actually saying, what he's actually doing, that nobody else seems to recognize. Which is completely different from either two versions. So we'll start with the tradition. The tradition was that Mormonism was science-based. Faith had to employ works until you're finished, until you've produced the resulting product of your faith. So if you build a boat, build a car, design a game, whatever, pattern for a dress, all of those originate with your inspiration. You then have to draw out the blueprints. That is the first phase, technically. Putting what you see in your mind, the inspiration you have, onto the physical realm. But then the blueprint or design or map then has to be taken to the next level and actually made, the product made. Because it's one thing to get inspiration and write it down. It's another thing to see what those words from your inspiration will result in. That was the original doctrine of Mormonism. And so, for example, Word of Wisdom, it's an easy one. You get inspiration as you're reading over the Word of Wisdom. Oh, okay, it's okay to drink Mountain Dew. And so you drink Mountain Dew, and you don't have DNA like I do, and so it causes you to mess up your sleeping schedule, and then it messes up your school the next day as you're sleeping in class, and then you get bad grades, and then you have to tell your parents, all I wanted was a Pepsi, not a Mountain Dew. We think it is in your best interest. Awesome song. And so, yeah, that was the original doctrine of Mormonism. As scriptures helped explain the doctrine for us. You know, the story of Noah. You know, he gets inspiration, build a boat, here's the plans on how to build the boat, and he builds the boat according to the plans. Simple. That's how the scriptures was understood by us back in those days. And the theology was that for the second coming, that in the premortal council in heaven, Jesus was chosen over Lucifer's plan, which Lucifer's plan was to force obedience so that everybody is exalted. No agency involved. You do it or you die spiritually. And on earth, yeah, it could employ all sorts of tortures to force compliance. And God's plan, Jesus said, I want yours. And so apparently some kind of a war took place between spirits who are eternal. And there were some who said, it was a war of words. And the majority ruled and cast out the demons to earth. It's still unclear as to what actually was going on. I won't stray. I'll probably be taking too much time as it is. And so the plan was that Jesus was to come to earth. He was supposed to fail to save the Jews, establish the kingdom on earth, and come back on earth in a pillar of light for the second coming. He'll first come to Adam on Diamond at the great priesthood meeting, where he'll be given the keys, because apparently he didn't get them on earth the first time around. Peter, James, and John didn't give it to him. And so, there needs to be a giving of keys to Jesus. See, in retrospect, I now recognize all the holes in all this traditional thinking. And after getting the keys, he then flies away in a pillar of light to go stand on the Mountain of Olives in Jerusalem. And as the Jews are about to be exterminated, he causes a great earthquake, and all the Muslims are immediately destroyed. And then the Jews who are surviving, who are left, go into the earthquake and the crack in the mountain, and at the other end, there's Jesus. What are those wounds in your hands and your feet? Well, these are the wounds of which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Who are your friends? That doesn't sound like good friends. And so then they'll be converted to Mormonism. And then they'll go and convert those Muslims of Islam who didn't die, apparently. And, Jews converting Islam. That'll be the day. And then Jesus goes back in a pillar of light up into heaven, and then back down to Independence, Missouri, which is south of Adam on Diamond, to sit on his throne to reign for a millennial reign of peace until Lucifer gathers his armies and they march to try to take the throne of the immortal Jesus, which is an actual war. With two beings who can't be killed, and one being who's not able to handle physical objects. Go figure. And so, that's the second coming theology of Mormons. And we don't ask, well, what happens to the prophet? What happens to the administration? Because currently it's the president of the church who's the leader of the church until Jesus comes and sits on his throne. But we never get the answer as to what happens with the administration. And we just assume, they'll still be, it's just Jesus now. And we can speculate. Jesus takes over as the president of the church and doesn't need counselors. And the 12 continue to remain, but they just die. They never get to succeed to be the president. And so the scriptures were understood as being the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37, which in retrospect is why they no longer talk about the need to fulfill it, Ezekiel 37, and why they don't add any other scriptures, and why Benson then later came out with the First Presidency statement on why we use the worst translated Bible in the history of mankind, and why we aren't fulfilling Article of Faith number 8, etc., etc. It's because if the Book of Mormon is the fulfillment, they don't need to do any work, remember the original doctrine, to actually be translators and translate the scriptures and correct the Bible. And yeah, because, well, then we'd find out that the Book of Mormon is plagiarized from the 1769 version of the King James Version, and so on, but I stray again. So ritual is a weird one, because again, Mormons aren't making the connection. It's one man, one woman. Oh yeah, that was done in the past, but there's still many Mormons in my generation who believe polygamy would be practiced in the millennium. And we don't think about how polygamy is illegal. We just, as Mormons, think, oh, well, yeah, God said no more, just one man, one woman, an official declaration, and then in the millennium we'll just start it up in polygamy. It's like crime doesn't exist in our vocabulary when it comes to the church. It's just when people harm us at the lower levels. You know, somebody does us wrong from our neighbors, or from the neighborhood, and then the ritual. You know, well, we have the initiatories, and we don't make the connection. We think that, oh, well, that's when I'm dead that I become a high priest and a king, actual Christ, taking upon yourself the name of Christ, because, again, we don't see ourselves as new Israelites, the pre-Jews. We see ourselves as Christian, evangelical Mormons. And yet we don't think that, well, why don't evangelical Mormons have temples and temple rituals? And then you get Mormons who follow every tabloid article about the Catholic Church in South America had a bishop who was sacrificing to Lucifer, and little babies on the altars and drinking their blood. You thought that was just recent. No, that's been going on forever. Where do you think vampires came from? And so, that was the original concept. And that in the millennium, we don't think to question what kind of government, because Jesus is in control. And the religion, Jesus is in control. It's a theocracy again. And we don't think about the economy. We assume it's going to continue to be capitalist because it's not communism. Those godless heathens, not even knowing what communism is and how it is implemented, as we just say, oh, well, Russia and China, they're communist, and so therefore whatever economy they use is therefore communism. And we don't stop and think, no, we don't practice capitalism, they don't practice communism. We've given definitions to economies that are completely different. See, Canada, for example, they're supposed to be socialist. No, they're capitalist. There's the misconception. It's just that the government takes the tax money from Canadians and actually spends it on the people rather than on businesses and the government. It's amazing. And so, yes, they get free health care because of the distribution of the taxes in a different manner in which it's done here in America. But again, we're clueless in those days and age. And so then you get this apologetic indoctrination into Mormonism. Apologists are defenders of a lost cause, and they have to use fallacy to defend it, because it's a lost cause. It's a losing argument. And so to have defenders, apologists, step in only is for the purpose of, lying, covering things up. And so you get what is utilized as Mormons nowadays have no choice but to accept that Joseph Smith secretly committed crimes, but again, they don't interpret it as crimes. He's the prophet of God, and so it's all for a higher purpose. And this is scary, because Mormons then justify their own actions as a higher godly purpose, as you get Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, who are in the news currently, who believe they have a higher purpose from this new emerging doctrine of spiritual witness, faith without works. And they just stop it there, and they don't keep reading the sentence in James where it says, is dead. You gotta keep going. Mormons don't keep going. Why? Well, because if you have just a spiritual witness, who's going to judge you? It's just an idea in your head. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. And so you're safe to believe whatever you want to believe in, because you yourself aren't even testing to produce the results of your beliefs and your ideas and your inspiration, to therefore judge whether your inspiration was good or bad. And so Lori and Chad, they think they're good. They're still going through the motions, and Chad just pleaded not guilty the other day. They don't see themselves as having done anything wrong, despite what they did. And if you don't know what they did, where have you been? Chad had a near-death experience, believed he had gone to the spirit world, and got all sorts of information about the second coming. And so when the tetrad in 2014-2015 occurred, Chad went off the deep end, thinking, this is it, this is the sign we've been waiting for. Yeah, it's a sign we're going out of business. Ghostbusters. And so he's now publishing books and doing, I don't know if speaking stuff about his near-death experience and all about the second coming and blah, blah, blah. And comes in contact with Lori Vallow. She's from Arizona. He's from Idaho, Rexburg there. And she believes everything he says. And of course, yeah, guys love it when women like whatever they say. And so they take it to the extreme. Oh, we were meant to be together, from the Saturday's Warrior. Oh, it's sad to belong to someone else when the right one comes along. Well, now it's, yeah, well, okay, the right one has come along. Let's kill our spouses. Oh my God. And so, yeah, they've got all the evidence of them buying wedding stuff on Amazon. They've got all the documentation. They have the money trail for the murders. And they had their kids together. And then all of a sudden they then say, okay, our kids are not being cooperative. I think they're now zombies. They've got the evidence of all the communication about this. And so, yeah, we got to kill our kids now. and not just kill them, cut their bodies up and then buried them in the Rexburg backyard. This is the new Mormon thinking about the latter days, and it's very scary. And so, I went over the doctrine. It's spiritual witness, faith without works, period. The theology, well, Mormons know about my generation, but now they're under the understanding, as Nelson has confirmed it, by the way, spoiler alert, they're now under the understanding that, well, the church is true, it's not going to be destroyed, and so why do we need to go back to Missouri? And then you have people thinking, well, okay, maybe there's the two places, Utah and Missouri, but we still don't have the land, we still don't have anything built. There's supposed to be the temple. We got till 2024. Where is it? And so they then come up with this crazy idea that it will be, and it got it from a member of the 70 who wrote a book. I traced the source origin to him. It was my parents' generation publication. And so, apparently, oh God. And so the idea is that the prophets will be inspired by God at a certain period of time to do secret mission calls to Missouri, to build it up, and all in secret. And so you get rumors going around. Oh yeah, they've got a vast tunnel network out there, and they've got supplies for a whole millennium, all out there. I've seen it. I've talked to somebody who saw it. I knew somebody who were mission couples out there. And they don't think, well, if you don't get the special call to go out there, which is supposed to be where Jesus sits on his throne, what does that mean about you being left behind? If you know that Christian series. It's like the rapture for Mormons. A special mission call to Independence, Missouri, to build the kingdom, unbeknownst to Mormons, so that all of a sudden, there it is. Oh, wow, that's amazing. It's a miracle. It's all built. Wow, had no clue. The Lord works in mysterious ways. Well, sure does. And so, that's their belief now. And they still believe in Jesus coming from a pillar of light to Adam on Diamond, priesthood beating, zapping the Muslims, converting the Jews to Mormonism, coming back to sitting on his throne. It's just Utah still exists. No Exodus. None of that. No going back to Missouri. The rituals, I can't see much of a difference, although more people are pushing for, I don't know if they're actually pushing for polygamy. There's still a group that knows about it, but I think there's enough now that think it's going to be singlehood, realizing that polygamy is ugly and disgusting. Lots of women are still single because they don't want to get involved with a guy who is just going to get other wives. And so they look for a man who believes in one man, one woman for all eternity. It came about as a result of the soulmate thing, perpetuated in our cultural society after Saturday's Warrior. Scriptures, the intellectual movement of the church resulted in Mormons being told that outside of the church information is evil and is going to lead you astray from the truth that the church approves for you to read. And Mormons are clueless about why it is that church keeps changing the church history narrative. This current generation does not understand. They don't. And I think for them, they've all come to realize, oh yeah, well, Joseph Smith had to rock. It was inspiration, not translation. It was just called translation. It's actual revelation. Well, why is there already revelation? Well, it's not essential to my salvation. That started springing up among this newer group. That, they don't need to study their scriptures. They just need to read it to get feelings, that spiritual witness, and then stop there. And it becomes an addiction, because when they're not studying their scriptures, they lose that feeling, trying to get that feeling again, separation makes the heart forget. Who are you again? Oh, you were my girlfriend at one point in time. Oh, you were my wife? You said we needed to take some time away? Oh, wow, do you have a document? I don't think we're actually married. Prove it. Because I'm having fun with these other women. I don't need you anymore. That'll teach you to leave me. So I may have to stop and do a part 2, because I can't pause the video. It messes up the audio. And so I was tangenting, wasn't I? So let's get back onto ritual. And so, yeah, there's some who are still in the mindset of monogamy. That this rising generation thinks they can change the church to make it better. They're the generation of everybody gets a participation trophy. And so with the spiritual witness, everybody believes whatever they want to believe, and nobody can challenge them. Everybody has to accept the big lies. You get a rising generation of youth now who think that, oh yeah, well, the church has got to be this. They've got to spend money on this rather than what they're spending it on or not spending it on. The church needs to do this in the church. Bishops need to do this. Blah, 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 blah. That's the entitlement that came from participation trophy syndrome. And you're seeing a psychological psycho push in our society where they push people who've been traumatized to believe that they have a mental illness now and need to seek psycho help. And this is being incorporated in the church with the scriptures. That's what we're talking about. The addiction of attending church only to get the feeling, reading your scriptures only to get the feeling, praying to God only to get the feeling, Going to the temple, only to get the feeling. Watching conference, only to get the feeling. See the pattern here. And nobody can judge them, because nobody knows what they're thinking or feeling. You don't know how I think. You don't know how I feel. You can't judge me. By their fruits we shall know them. If you've got no fruit, we can now judge you too. And so, yeah, it's a real nightmare. And thus produced the Daybells and Vallows of Mormonism. Also, Brian David Mitchell and the Mark Hoffman guy, they were the leaders of this current movement. They were just so extreme back then that Mormons dismissed them as being Mormon. Even with the FLDS church, they are so far separated from core Mormonism now that Mormons dismiss them altogether as having anything to do with Mormonism. So yeah, it's foreign that they would believe in polygamy. It's foreign that they would believe in Adam as our Heavenly Father. It's foreign that they believe in temples without priesthood authority. And they have a wrong administration and blah, blah, blah. And Mormons just don't think about that, especially when they go to Kirtland Temple to take a tour of that and say, well, where's the baptistry? Why aren't you wearing magic underwear? It's because Joseph Smith didn't have the magic underwear. There were no endowment sessions with loyalty oaths. And so yeah, my generation knew about that if you were disobedient. It's still in there. When you raise your arm to the square, you're holding the knife. The thumb is the knife, because that's what you use to slice your throat. So these are loyalty oaths, and the penalty is still there as a reminder. But because it's taken out, the penalty part, the other current Mormons are clueless that this is what they're doing in conference, let alone in the temple. And so, yeah, big bad news. And so with the scriptures, the concept of waiting for new scripture that the president of the church will translate, gone. We have the quad, a quad, a quad. We have a quad, and we need no more quad. I'm sure all those who have been Mormon know where I'm getting that from. The Book of Mormon, the prophecy that in the latter days, people will say, a Bible, we have a Bible, and we need no more Bible. Mormons are fulfilling the evil Book of Mormon prophecies. That's why I'm telling you, this is a scary Mormonism that has risen. And so the administration, yeah, it's different. Because I had been led to believe that, well, once the prophet dies, the apostles then meet and they get revelation from God as to who they should select. And it could be an elder of the church. An obscure boy. Because God said so. We got to put what God says into the position. Nope. Since 1923, the church has been pulling a fast one over all of us. It's always the president of the 12 apostles. The last oldest man standing in rank. And yes, that has to do with the mafia crime organization. The underboss. So, that is the new Mormonism currently practiced. And it is deadly scary. And so I'm going to stop here, take care of some business, and then come back. to finish with what Nelson's reality is going to be. Alright, so under Nelson, we're seeing a mixture of the two doctrines. In the last conference, Nelson was talking about how he does the doctrine that I talked about from my generation, but then told Mormons to do the current one. Feelings, nothing but spiritual witness feelings. That I thought was disturbing, because he's causing a confusion where he's making it so that my generation will hear what we want to hear, and the current generation will hear what they want to hear, and dismiss what they don't want to hear. That's a very dangerous thing to toy around with as a leader. But the theology, Nelson is putting it out there that no, second coming's not here yet, still in a distant future. Signs are not signs. The events on earth with those signs, nope, not the case. And so that's also dangerous. Because how are they going to explain retroactively unless they expect everybody to just forget? Oh, time went on. Oh yeah, did we have a solar eclipse in 2017? Huh, I wonder if that had anything to do with... No? Okay. And here's what else they're going to do though. Because I see this in the process over time for my generation. With each new technological advancement, they try to make it more difficult for people to be able to obtain their own copy of the information. See, back in my generation, the VCR recorder allowed us to hook up to our TV sets, which were analog rather than digital, and be able to record off of the TV program that we were watching. And we can even preset for when to start and all this type of technology. And I noticed even back then, TV shows, to make sure that people get screwed, would start late or early and end early or late to mess up your timing on your VCR recorders. And TV is free, so everything's in the public domain. We have full rights to obtain our own copy, whether it's the news or a TV show. And we didn't think back then in terms of, wow, I would love to have the whole series of Magnum P.I., the original, or Simon and Simon. Anybody remember that one? Or Dallas, the original Dallas, etc. Or General Hospital. They still to this day will not give us any episodes of previous General Conference or General Hospitals. I would love to have the whole series where the Cassidines did their whole freeze ray thing with Luke and Laura, and then Laura gets kidnapped and Luke goes off around the world searching for her. Those were awesome days. But nope, they do not want you to have your own copy of that material, and they're not even going to let you see the reruns. Nope, soap opera is a regular thing continuously. Even the WWE now, it used to be called WWF, they at least allow you to obtain anthologies if you have the money for them. And so then video rentals came out, and with the sale of VHS tapes, video tape recordings also had rental companies. And VHS beat out Beta. People say Beta is better. I don't know. VHS was just fine. You just had to know that you needed to clean your machine because of the dirt that gets on the spindle wheels. And most people aren't told this, and so they think, oh, the VHS player is bad, I need to buy a new one. And they always keep creating newer models to get people to buy new ones anyway. And then they came out with the recorder and all that stuff so that we could record from the TV. And then you get into the cable era where you can now record the cable shows. And I was trying to get Battlestar Galactica back then. Little did I know that all I had to do was wait for the DVDs and get a converter with a computer system and digitize it. But yeah, when the Congress forced everybody to go digital, shutting down all the analogs, the TV manufacturers put in a little device thing that prevented people from recording from a recorder from the screen. It was now coded or whatever to block people from getting recordings. And so that's not cool. But you have the DVDs that are coming out. And so at first there wasn't TV shows. The Simpsons was the very first TV show to be rented and be available as a TV show. But for some reason, they were slow. They're way behind. They've only gotten to 21, because the last one was 2 years ago when they came out with season 19, and they just finished season 32. So way behind. Everybody else is all caught up. You know, the new season starts and they've already had released the DVDs the week before. That's been the tradition. But again, they still don't like it that people buy DVDs. And they don't like it that people have their own copies for their own use. And thus they came up with streaming. And so now it's a big old mess. And it's all designed to keep you from knowing the information. And so the church, likewise, has been doing this. They only want you to utilize church-approved curriculum. At first, when the internet came out with social media, they thought, oh, this would be a great idea to do missionary work online, spread the gospel to all the world through social media. And unfortunately, so did the science get spread throughout social media about how the church doesn't conform and comply to science. And you have an exodus of Mormons of, at that time it would have been 11 million. Now it's up to 13 million who have just said, I want nothing more to do with the church. And so a massive exodus from the church occurred because of the newer technologies and people getting more available access to information. And so the church has gone through the phase of, anti-intellectualism. We don't want you learning from the world. It's evil. It'll lead you astray. It'll take you away from the church. Well, yeah, of course it will. Because truth exposes corruption and wickedness and evil and blah, blah, blah. And so now with the internet, it's you can see Oakes's talks where he outright says, science has its purpose in those fields, but religion, no. Spiritual witness is better than science. That's why. And they keep having to change their church history publications because of this. The latest one is The Saints. And this was just after they came out with the Rock and a Hat. And so, yeah, the more science exposes the church and church history and the Book of Mormon, the more the church is getting into trouble. And then when I come along, I'm like, oh, hey, Joseph Smith is a translator. Isn't this cool? Church is true. No. We've been telling Mormons we're not translators. We need to silence you, Travis. We need to punish you and see that you die. So we're ordering your execution, and we're paying the people to do it, and they failed, obviously. So yeah, this is part with scriptures, is because the church, they want nothing more to do with scriptures at all. Scriptures are just messing things up for their plans of the future. Not just the Bible, but the Book of Mormon. It's getting exposed by science. Their linguists are saying, oh, well, we're finding contemporary books in the Book of Mormon here as a type of plagiarism almost. And what does the church do? Joseph Smith never told us he plagiarized the Book of Mormon, and then I'm the one who's saying it wasn't even Joseph Smith. It was his daddy and Sidney Rigdon who were working this out. And that's why we're New Israelites, is because of Daddy in Vermont. He was a part of the New Israelites. That's why Hebrew and Jewish mysticism with the Tree of Life and anti-polygamy even. It's because of his influence with the New Israelites. And signs in the heavens, also part of Jewish mysticism as well. And so the church history and the Book of Mormon and translation, because of me, are all crushing the church. Mass exodus is occurring. And they've got to do damage control. They didn't prepare for science. And so, yeah, like I did the breakout video a month before conference, saying they're going to abolish the Book of Mormon. Watch and see. That's because they have to. By 2024, we are not going to see the church history that we've all come to now be told is now the new church history. They're going to keep on changing it, taking out certain things. As the new author of the Brigham Young book, he's dominated Wikipedia now. All the old information gone. He's now the primary source documentation for all things Brigham. And even though that's wrong, he did release information that is crucial. So, because that was the one thing. I knew why Heber wanted to join the church, because that's still in the Wikipedia under Masonry. Canandaigua, and then look at Joseph Smith Sr., where it talks about Canandaigua. No, it's not church-approved curriculum. I will not do it. But this book exposed why Brigham joined the church. And oh dear God, it's a doozy. And he's like clueless. He says, oh yeah, Brigham Young enjoyed the church, he attended church regularly, and then 3 years later when his wife dies, he then joins. And the guy doesn't catch on. He thinks Brigham Young is valiant and faithful. Those who were valiant and faithful joined somewhat immediately. They didn't take 3 years. So, yeah, the reason why he was attending church and his wife dying are connected. And why he then joined the church after she died is connected. And the church doesn't want that information out, but this Mormon who's now dominating the internet with his book is eventually going to cause a problem. So they're going to have to, as the prophets, are now going to have to strip church history from Mormons. And as we see the church go away from printed scriptures and have everybody go online, you're eventually going to see them phasing out scriptures altogether. That all Mormons need is the Word of God. And it's going to be literal after 2024. And so they can't have anything that would expose the church. So they got to get rid of the Book of Mormon. Science has destroyed it. They got to get rid of church history. Science and historians are exposing it. I'm the one cleaning it up, correcting the errors. For example, D. Michael Quinn. Is it D. Michael? Yeah, D. Michael Quinn. It's F. Michael Watson is the other guy in my life. D. Michael Quinn wrote the book Mormonism and the Magic World View. This is why the church was forced to come out with a rock and a hat. As the church still dismisses D. Michael Quinn's belief that Joseph Smith was just practicing witchcraft, which was normal in those days. No, again, he does not delve into the history of the Smith family that were anti-witchcraft. Jewish mysticism is not witchcraft. It's completely different. And he just, nope, he's a very poor historian. But his research on the Hierarchy trilogy that he did, great, awesome work, good job. Stay away from church history. And now he's dead. So, no, there's nobody who's going to do research on Mormon finances other than me. And so the ritual, Nelson came out and changed the temple. Remember that? It was a big deal. Women no longer obey their husbands as they supposed. Women no longer wear a veil. And Eve now quotes from the Book of Moses, the selections from the Book of Moses, the Joseph Smith translation, which was Sidney Rigdon, not Joseph, but and so they think, oh wow, they wrote parts in for Eve because they don't read their scriptures anymore. They only read the scriptures to get inspiration, that spiritual witness, and they're done. And so lots of stuff in the scriptures already are being ignored because it's not spiritually uplifting. Mormons have their favorites that they go to be inspired, that type of thing. Nobody's actually studying the scriptures. Nobody's researching the scriptures anymore. And so the prophets know this, and they're exploiting this in Mormons. And so I was the one, I was actually surprised. My second ex brought it to my attention, and I went, "What? You caught this?" Okay. It's in the law of chastity. The law of chastity, it's those to whom you are legally and lawfully wedded according to his law, God's law. Well, that's section 132, which the church has already pulled this stunt with section 132 back in the year before Brigham Young died. He put in section 132, gutted section 131 that had Joseph Smith talking to a one-man, one-woman couple saying, "You'll be exalted in the celestial kingdom when you get sealed in the temple." Well, we can't have that if we're going to introduce polygamy. And he took out the monogamy chapter where it denounced polygamy. And so I'm kind of surprised that he didn't have the Book of Mormon altered to remove all references, the 4 that condemn polygamy in the Book of Mormon. But he kept that. It was still edited from the original. And so I still haven't done the research to check, but yeah, Brigham Young in 1844 put it back to the edited version he wanted. As Joseph Smith said, no, put it back to the way it was originally. If you don't know that part, that's kind of important. But the church has already pulled the stunt of removing scriptures and replacing them with the new doctrine. And so that's what Nelson did with the temple. He removed the undesirable parts, but added in, as he thought in secret, the extra polygamy thing for the law of chastity. The sealing, as I exposed, which YouTube shut down my TWG channel for 2 weeks because of, did a video exposing the sealings in the temple still employing the wording that women are slaves, sex slaves to their husband. They are property to their husband. And with BYUs, well, you get people from around the world coming to BYU, and they get sealed to other Mormons. Now you have sex trafficking. And so, yeah, YouTube was unhappy, or the church was unhappy and ordered YouTube to shut me down, and they did over a bogus claim of, "Oh, you violated our policies, Travis. We have to shut you down for 2 weeks and silence you." There was no violation. They were the violation. And so those rituals are still in the temple. Now, Nelson came out and said, "We've made some changes. I'm very upset. People are complaining." Yeah, well, I exposed you in the lawsuit that I was denied. That's why. And so that's why I was denied. It's because I had the evidence on the church, and they could not let that evidence be presented. I knew that was going to be the case, and so I kept slipping in evidence. And so they had to shut me down quick. They even ordered further assassinations of me. Oh, dear God. So, yeah, I'm still... and that's why you have the noise of the fan in the background, etc. So that's the ritual. And the scripture. So I've gone over ritual, scriptures, and doctrine. The administration he's made it clear. This is the pattern and the path that's always been the case. I got my authority from Brigham Young. And so, the presidency of the 12 becomes the successor upon the death of the president of the church. So Oaks will take over. There is no spiritual revelation from God saying, no, Oaks cannot be the president. I want so-and-so. Nope. That's finally now official. So if you're from my generation and you think that anybody can be chosen, oops, nope, wrong church. That church died with Joseph. So, the theology about the second coming now. Nelson also has come out and said outright, Temple Square is Zion. So the Zion Temple is now being remodeled. That's Salt Lake Temple. There is no Missouri. I actually found out it's actually Southern Illinois. The Joseph Smith Papers has a sermon by Joseph Smith on 19 July 1840. And it's supposed to be the mountain cities of Zion and New Jerusalem in Southern Illinois. He even says, there are many of you who think it's Independence, Missouri. You are wrong. And the reason why it was not put into the Doctrine and Covenants by Brigham Young is that he also says that the 12 of Brigham Young now are Judas, and referring to the Last Supper, there are those among you, not just one, who will say, is it I, who want me dead? Joseph Smith knew well, long before, and I haven't done that video for you, but Joseph Smith knew he was going to be assassinated when he began the church. They knew that was a likely probability because of the threat that they faced back then to produce the Book of Mormon. I haven't done that video. Alright, so Jesus. Well, no Adam on Diamond now. That's no longer going to be the case. No Independence, Missouri, Zion. No temple in Zion. They've given up on the land. They have no interest in it. They're going to own the property because if you've noticed, people who own land after destruction are the wealthy people. They get to control how the land is utilized and hire people to work the land and give the money to them. Property owners. And so that's why the church is going full throttle this last conference with 24, I think they're up to. They added some extra temples after the 23 or 24, something like that. But this is why, is because they want property all over the world, but especially in Utah. There's a reason why they keep putting new temples in Utah. It is no longer based on population of elders who can attend the temple and pay tithing. Remember, an exodus occurred. There is not the membership necessary to build temples anymore. In fact, if they were to be fiscally conservative, they'd have to be tearing down temples and selling the land because it's an excessive expenditure that they're not able to maintain. But thanks to the whistleblower, we now know that they can afford to do this because they've been diverting tithing money, which was supposed to be used for bishop storehouses, for the building construction, and diverting it into the stock market and savings accounts, earning interest that now is more than they make in tithing per year. And then the stock portfolio from Ensign Peak Advisors was reported by Fox 13 News Utah as making $6 billion off of our deaths and suffering with coronavirus. So if you lost your job, if you got sick, you lost a loved one, yeah, Nelson knew about that and profited off of it. Remember, he contacted China, got a temple, had America pay for it with the PPE orders. So, because there is no Missouri now, he's denying all the signs. Well, what's going to be done, Travis? I don't know. I think I'm going to upload this tomorrow because this has now reached about an hour now. Yeah, it's over an hour. So I'll save this tonight and then tomorrow I'll upload it. He has revealed today that he's making the North Visitor Center into a garden paradise so that people can contemplate as they look at the Salt Lake Temple. I wonder if they'll keep the wall that covers up the keystone on the doors. Because I don't think they will. I think the wall's coming down because they're expecting to expel from Utah the undesirables, who are those who are weak in the faith, who are not Mormon, who are the rising generation who think they know better than the church and know how to tell the church what for and wherefore, and are getting excommunicated. I did that video about one such Mormon whose friend, he did the video about how his friend has gotten called in for excommunication because of his video posts on YouTube. He's a Mormon. He supports the church, and it's just he thinks he knows better than the church. Participation trophies don't go well with the church. You don't have a say. 1923 made it clear. Mormons are now chattel. You no longer have a voice in the church. And so with the other news of conference being canceled on the Saturday evening sessions, women also no longer have a voice. You may continue to see 3 women per conference weekend, maybe. But again, they're going to restore polygamy. It's in the law of chastity now. It's still in the sealing. Women are property to their husband. And so, yes, I can see the law of obedience. Okay, well, nobody fell for this, so we'll just return it to the way it was. With the coronavirus, it made it easy for Mormons to forget the changes. So convenient having this prophesied coronavirus. It's amazing. And so what about the Christus in the North Visitor Center? Well, they came out also today after their meeting and said, we're going to unveil it in its new location in 2024. Because that's when the temple's going to be finished. So yeah, the second coming. Remember? Now, Jesus is Evangelical Mormon since 1923. So he's supernatural, and they just went over that in conference. Omnipotent, omnipresent, all-powerful, all-knowing. He used that fallacious argument from Christians to describe the Mormon evangelical Jesus. Because there's a fallacy flaw with a supernatural deity. It's not real. If it's real, which Christians, there are many Christians who believe that Jesus became temporarily flesh as a mortal on earth, but he still had the divine Trinity aspect to him, so that when he gave up his own life on the cross and was buried in a tomb and resurrected and ascended, well, he just went back to the Trinity as a supernatural deity. And he'll come back in the second coming as a physical deity. That's a little different than Mormons, but it still doesn't work. You can't be both. You have to be physical in order to be real. And if you're physical, you have to abide by the laws of physics. That whole science thing again. And so, there is no supernatural mortal Jesus for Mormons. It's the big lie. And so, how does the prophets, Nelson, deal with that for 2024? When he unveils, hey, the second coming happened. Isn't this awesome? He's got to somehow let Mormons know, and he'll do it by saying, well, his glory is too bright for the cameras, so we can't have him be seen by all of you. He's taken up residence in the Holy of Holies, but again, it'll be redesigned to prevent Mormons from sneaking in to go blind. And then instead he'll just say, hey, well, the Christus, this is it. It's already our logo now. And so here's the statue in its new location, which I'm willing to bet is by the temple or in the temple or somewhere in the proximity, so that only Mormons can see it. Wouldn't that be interesting if it's in the celestial kingdom by the Holy of Holies, like the ancients used to trick and deceive people? And so then the prophet can continue to keep the administration going and then say, thus saith the Lord, I am giving you the word of the Lord now. The Lord wants us to establish polygamy. The Lord wants you who are elders to give up your wives to me because you're not high priests. You know, but they'll take away Section 76. So it's going to be tough. He took away the high priest group. And Oakes was claiming with a grin, it's scriptural, trust us. No, it's not scriptural. I don't trust you. I did the video on that when they took it away. There are all sorts of scriptures saying, no, high priests are essential. And I've come to learn Joseph Smith had a whole quorum, not a group, of high priests. Completely different administration under Joseph Smith. And so what will happen is that he's already set it up to have the temple include more people. He's doing away with the different rooms, the the creation room, the garden room, the terrestrial room, the telestial room, and the celestial room. Telestial, terrestrial, celestial. And it's going to be like the regular temples where it's a room and you do the whole thing with the video presentation and the murals are gone, and then you go to the veil and such forth. And so the videos will be redone, most likely with polygamy now. And as the law of chastity will now include polygamy in there, openly, rather than just those in the pronoun without referring to what those means. And so to get away from scriptures, you have the streaming service. Mormons will only be able to get their information from the church. None of the world stuff anymore, because this is Utah. It's all church 24/7. You know, and so what the church tells you is now scripture. Jesus is back. And so only the word of Jesus will be given to Mormons. Scriptures are done away with. We don't need them anymore. He's here. He's fulfilled it. So yeah, we don't need them anymore. He's also indicated that it's the place of the gathering, Temple Square, which I thought was strange, because that means he's got plans for the vicinity around Temple Square. I don't know if the neighbors know this. Neighbors complained about the conference center being built. But, yeah, he's got plans for Temple Square to be the place of gathering. He specifically said, Temple Square. It's the prophecy of Isaiah for the gathering. And what are the gathering? Well, Mormons from around the world to come to Utah. And I've done this about how they're trying to replace us. That they've been trying to torture us, polluting Utah, the drought, coronavirus. They're exterminating as many as they can, weakening us, disabling us, punishing us, for the sole purpose of purging us from Utah. Operation Rio Grande was to exterminate the homeless. They are trying to get rid of the weak Mormons who are not filthy rich and self-reliant, self-sustaining, and replace us with the rich from around the world, because they're not going to pay for the gathering. Nope, only the rich Mormons from around the world will be able to afford to travel to America to replace us. That's their intention, by saying that Temple Square is the gathering, that Temple Square is Zion, that the Salt Lake Temple is the Zion Temple. That's what he's talking about, because only the righteous will be in Zion. You see what they're doing? It's the master race plan. That's why they're doing all this. That's why they're punishing you during this drought. That they, the government, under orders of the church, purposely caused all these decades, purposely caused, promoting combustion engine and pollutants in Utah, in our air, in our land, in our water, to help spread and escalate coronavirus, as church became the super spreader, as the church profited $6 billion off of the coronavirus. This is what they're doing. They're replacing us. And when you have rich don't really care if you're lying to them or not. They're rich. As long as they get to maintain their level of wealth, who cares? And so if the prophets say that Jesus has his home in the Salt Lake Temple, and maybe if you're righteous enough, come to the temple, maybe you'll see him. And you'll get nutcases who will say, "Oh, I see him, there he is." No, you don't see him, he never existed. You're trying to pull a fast one over us. So, this is the danger we face. This is how horrible, awful they are. Demonically, satanic they are. This is why the church paid Russia for a temple we have yet to see. We're never going to get that temple. But Russia used that money to attack America, as the church has made a deal saying, hey, destroy America for us, help us get our kingdom back. This is beyond treason. This is terrorist treason. They are working with the enemy to destroy America. As Cox came out with this third order of drought emergency, make yellow lawns great again. That's the new Heil Hitler. So I think I've covered the basics. But it's frustrating that I can't get people to watch as YouTube is shutting me down and silencing me. I know a lot of people have died because the subscriptions that I have are nowhere near a percentage I should be getting for views. But it's a lot of deaths. And I still worry about in the beginning of 2020, when the coronavirus was first being announced, I had one subscriber who was using her Facebook channel to promote my videos. And she talked about how her daughter had gotten coronavirus, and she was concerned about whether her daughter was going to live or die. And then she's gone. I tried reaching out by an old comment she had made, making another comment. Gone. This is a sad reality that we are facing. And the new generation of spiritual witnessizers are completely clueless to all of this that I am witnessing. Because I was born in the generation where you actually kept researching until you saw the finished product. I've done the church history. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian petroglyphs. Been Mormon faithful my whole life, and have been in a position in the church curriculum department as a church service missionary where I got to control how you think and believe if you're in a foreign language. They didn't want to do it for the English, and it doesn't look like they will be doing it for the English at all, because they can't. Science has destroyed the Book of Mormon and church history. They have to revamp it into just a simple, hey, Joseph Smith is our founder, he saw Heavenly Father and Jesus, and they told him to start a church. They got to eliminate Moroni, which was actually Nephi. All of that. The brass plates, Book of Mormon has to go. Because science says no. What I have uncovered is that it has to do with the Knights Templar Freemasonry, with the York Rites. That's why they used all of that to explain the Book of Mormon coming out. Because if they said, well, in 1826, William Morgan was arrested. My father had arranged to have him secreted out of the United States to save his life, and then decided to take over the publication of the book that William Morgan was working on, that wouldn't go over too well. They would be assassinated a lot quicker than they did get assassinated, Joseph Hiram. So, alrighty. That's it. An hour and a half. My hell. Yeah, this will be done tomorrow.